Let me ask you something. When you watched the Hooligan music video for the very first time, and I mean the very first time, that raw, unfiltered reaction, what was the first thing your eyes locked onto? Because if you're being completely honest with yourself, you already know the answer. It wasn't the sweeping dystopian landscapes. It wasn't the fog rolling across barren ground like a slow wave of dread. It wasn't even the incredibly intricate choreography that BTS has become legendary for delivering. No, your eyes went straight to Jimin. They always do. And this video, this raw, chaotic, unapologetically powerful piece of visual art, is the single most convincing piece of evidence we have that ParkJimin operates on a level that simply does not have a comparison in the music industry right now. Welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, you picked the perfect video to walk into. Today we are breaking down the Hooligan music video in full, and we are specifically tracking the phenomenon that is Jimin, because this MV did not just give us a great performance. It gave us a masterclass. It gave us documentation. It gave us proof that when people say nobody moves like Jimin, that is not fan exaggeration. That is a factual statement backed by frame-by-frame evidence. So buckle in, because we are going deep. Let's start at the very beginning, because the opening of this MV is a deliberate, calculated artistic decision that sets the tone for everything that follows. The video opens in a parking garage. Now, if you've been following BTS long enough, that image alone should have sent a jolt of recognition through your body, because this is a direct, unmistakable nod to the Not Today music video from 2017. And that choice was not made by accident. BTS does not make accidental choices. What Big Hit and the creative team behind Ararang are doing here is drawing a direct line between who BTS was at the beginning of this chapter of their career and who they are now. They are saying, we started here. Look at where we are. And when you understand that context, when you understand that this parking garage represents a kind of origin point, Jimin standing in that space carries enormous weight. Because Jimin in 2017 and Jimin in 2026 are the same person, and also completely different entities. The growth, the refinement, the absolute crystallization of his artistry over nearly a decade is visible in every single frame. From the parking garage, the MV pulls us into a world that can only be described as a dystopian fever dream. We are talking about dark, barren landscapes that stretch out in every direction, shrouded in fog so thick it feels almost physical. The visual world of Hooligan is a place where civilization seems to have collapsed inward, where the rules of ordinary life no longer apply, where the only thing that matters is power, the power of presence, the power of movement, the power of commanding space. And in this world, Jimin does not just exist. Jimin rules. There is a scene, and if you haven't paused on it yet, please go back and pause on it, where the entire group comes together on a stark red platform that rises out of the darkness like an altar. Masked dancers move around them in elaborate formations, weaving and circling, while in the background, a massive stony palace looms against the sky like something out of a long-dead civilization. 7 members of the most successful group in the history of K-pop stand on that platform, and every single one of them is performing at an elite level. And Jimin still pulls focus, not because he is doing something dramatically different from the others, but because of something that is almost impossible to put into words, though we are absolutely going to try. The thing about Jimin is that he has what veteran performers and choreographers sometimes call presence within precision. What that means is that most dancers, when they achieve a high level of technical accuracy, begin to look mechanical. The movement becomes about hitting marks, landing counts, executing formations. And that is genuinely impressive, but it reads to an audience as craft rather than art. Jimin somehow achieves both simultaneously. Every movement he makes is executed with razor-sharp precision, and yet every movement feels like it is coming from somewhere emotional and interior. When he extends his arm in the group formation during Hooligan, it is not just an arm reaching outward. It looks like intention made visible. It looks like feeling given physical form. That is extraordinarily rare. That is the thing that separates good dancers from generational performers, and Jimin has been doing it his entire career, but in this MV, in this era, with this song and this visual concept, it reaches a new peak. Let's talk about the song itself for a moment, because you cannot fully understand what Jimin is doing physically in this MV without understanding what the music is asking of him. Hooligan is a track built on tension. The production is aggressive, There are chopped up strings that hit like blows, percussion that drives forward with this relentless, punishing energy, and a lyrical concept built around chaos, rebellion, and the refusal to be contained. Suga, and J-Hope co-wrote this track, and they created something that is fundamentally about defiance, about breaking from expectation, about showing up and doing exactly what you were told you couldn't do. And when you listen to the song with those themes in mind and then watch Jimin move through the MV, you start to realize that his entire physical performance is a translation of that emotional content. He is not dancing on top of the music, he is dancing from inside it. There is a passage in the MV, one of the most talked about moments among ARMY since the video dropped, where the members walk through a dark and narrow passage while gravity-defying figures float overhead in the background. This visual choice is deliberately disorienting. The world of this MV operates on different rules, and in this passage, watch specifically what Jimin does with his upper body. While moving forward with the group, there is a quality to his carriage, to the way his shoulders sit, the way his chest moves, the angle of his chin, that communicates something the choreography alone is not communicating. He looks like someone who belongs in a world that has abandoned its rules. He looks completely, terrifyingly at home. That is not an accident. That is Jimin understanding the assignment at a level that goes beyond technical execution and into genuine creative interpretation. He is not performing a concept. He has absorbed it and is now expressing it from the inside out. And then there is the matter of Suju. If you were watching the MV closely, you noticed a striking figure, a woman with a sword, a presence that is deliberately silent and yet enormously powerful within the visual language of the video. The inclusion of Suju as this kind of silent force of nature is a fascinating artistic choice because it sets up a visual conversation between two kinds of power, the explosive, kinetic power of the group choreography and the still, contained, almost menacing power of her presence. And Jimin, in the moments where the camera captures him in relation to this energy, mirrors that duality in his own performance. He is capable of being the kinetic, explosive version of himself, and he has given us that relentlessly throughout the video. But there are also moments where Jimin goes still, and those moments of stillness are somehow louder than the movement. The control required to hold that kind of charged stillness in the middle of a high-energy performance is staggering. It is the physical equivalent of a rest in music, the silence that makes the surrounding notes more powerful. Now let's zoom out for a moment and talk about why this particular era matters so much in the context of Jimin's trajectory as an artist. BTS has been away for nearly 4 years. The members served their mandatory military service, they pursued solo projects, they grew individually in ways that were visible to anyone paying attention. And when Arirang dropped, the question that was hanging over everything, unspoken but very much present, was, who are they now? Who has Jimin become in these years of separation, of solitude, of individual growth? And the answer that Hooligan delivers is thrilling, because Jimin in this MV is not trying to be a different version of himself. He is not overcompensating, not reaching for something new in a way that feels forced. He is the most distilled, concentrated version of what he has always been. The things that made him extraordinary when BTS first broke through, the emotional expressiveness, the physical intelligence, the ability to make technique feel like feeling, are all still there, but they have been refined down to something almost elemental. He is not more of something. He is more purely himself. The fashion and visual styling of Hooligan deserves its own conversation, because what BTS is wearing in this video is doing a tremendous amount of work in terms of reinforcing the emotional and thematic content. All black fits, leather textures, balaclava elements. This is aesthetic language that communicates edge, danger, and a kind of underground royalty. And while all 7 members are styled to fit within this world, Jimin wears it in a way that feels inevitable. There is a phrase that stylists use, the clothes wearing the person versus the person wearing the clothes. Some performers put on a costume and look like they are playing dress-up. Others put on a look and it becomes part of them so completely that you cannot imagine them in anything else. Jimin falls decisively and permanently in the second category. In the black leather fits of Hooligan, he does not look costumed. He looks correct. He looks like this is exactly what was always supposed to be on his body in this moment. Let's also address something that the American Army specifically tends to appreciate, which is the crossover quality of Jimin's artistry, the way his performance language translates across cultural contexts. Part of what makes Jimin such a compelling figure for audiences who did not grow up in the K-pop ecosystem is that the things he does best are universal. Emotional authenticity in performance is not a cultural phenomenon. Physical presence that commands attention is not language dependent. The ability to make an audience feel something without a single spoken word, that is art operating at its most fundamental level. And Hooligan, as a concept, speaks directly to something that resonates deeply in American music culture, the energy of rebellion, of refusing to be categorized, of showing up in a space that was not built for you and owning every inch of it. Jimin does not just perform that energy, he embodies it with such completeness that it feels less like a performance and more like a genuine personal statement. There is something happening in the choreography of Hooligan that deserves specific attention, and it has to do with the relationship between group synchronization and individual expression. BTS choreography has always been remarkable for the way it functions simultaneously as a group statement and as a showcase for individual voices within the group. The formations, the precision, the unified execution, all of that is genuinely spectacular, and all of it is made possible by years of working together, of learning each other's rhythms and tendencies. But within those formations, within those precisely executed group moments, each member finds spaces to be themselves. And Jimin's spaces are the most distinctive. There is a quality to his transitions, the way he moves between formations, the way his body passes through the blank space between one count and the next, that is entirely his own. Other dancers hit their marks. Jimin sculpts the space between the marks. And in Hooligan, where the choreography itself has this aggressive, driving energy that pushes constantly forward, those moments of sculptural transition stand out even more clearly against the surrounding intensity. It is also worth talking about Jimin's face, because in a music video as visually rich and compositionally complex as Hooligan, facial performance is something that many performers allow to become secondary to the physicality of the choreography. That is a completely understandable choice. When your body is doing what BTS bodies do during a performance like this, maintaining a deliberate and expressive facial quality simultaneously is asking a tremendous amount of an artist. Jimin does not compromise on either front. The face you see in Hooligan is not a neutral mask of concentration, and it is not the generic intensity face that you see from many performers in this genre. It is a specific, considered, emotionally inhabited expression that changes, subtly, but unmistakably, in response to the music in the moment. Watch his eyes specifically. Watch the way they focus and shift. There is an intelligence behind them that is always actively present, always reading the space, always choosing. It is the face of an artist who is fully inside the experience, rather than executing it from outside. By the time Hooligan reached its climax, and the video began to move toward its ending, something had crystallized that felt larger than a single music video. What we were watching was a document of a career arriving at its fullest expression. Not its peak, because Jimin has never struck anyone who pays attention as someone who has reached his ceiling, but its fullest expression so far. The version of Jimin that exists in the Hooligan MV is the result of more than a decade of relentless, disciplined, deeply personal artistic work. It is the result of a person who took an extraordinary natural gift and refused to stop developing it, refused to let it coast, refused to settle for being great when being transcendent was still available as an option. Every frame of this music video is the evidence. Every movement is the argument. And the verdict has already been delivered by millions of viewers who watched this video and felt, in that wordless place where art actually lands, that they had seen something they would not forget. There is one more dimension of Jimin's performance in Hooligan that does not get discussed nearly enough, and it is the dimension that might actually be the most impressive of everything we have covered so far. It is the question of consistency. Anyone who has spent serious time studying performance, whether in dance, theater, music, or any other live or recorded art form, understands that the hardest thing to do is not to have a great moment. Great moments happen. Inspiration strikes, the camera catches something magical, and a single frame becomes unforgettable. The genuinely difficult thing, the thing that separates artists from superstars, is to sustain that level of intentionality and presence across an entire piece without a single moment of checked-out execution. And when you watch the Hooligan MV from start to finish with that question in mind, is there a single frame where Jimin is not fully, completely, consciously inhabiting this performance? The answer you arrive at is both simple and staggering. There is not one, not a single frame. From the opening shot to the final image, Jimin is present at 100% in every moment this camera finds him. That is not a small thing. That is almost an inhuman thing. And it is the thing that makes rewatching this video so rewarding, because every time you look for something new you find it, because every detail was placed there deliberately by a performer who never coasted for a single second. It is also worth stepping back and acknowledging what BTS returning as a full group actually means for someone like Jimin specifically. During the years of solo work and individual growth, each member proved something important about their own artistic identity. Jimin's solo releases during that period showed a performer who was capable of carrying an entire project on his own, the emotional range, the visual storytelling, the genuine artistic voice. And what those solo years did, in a way that we can now see clearly in Hooligan, is give him a deeper ownership of himself as an artist. When Jimin performs with BTS now, he is not subordinating his individual voice to the group. He is bringing a fully developed, fully realized individual artistry into the collective, and the result is something that neither the solo work nor the group work could produce alone. The version of Jimin in Hooligan is the synthesis of everything: the group training, the individual exploration, the years of military discipline, the artistic maturity. He is not returning to something. He is arriving somewhere new. And that arrival is visible in every second of this music video. It is visible in the way he commands the red platform. It is visible in the fog-covered landscapes, where he moves like he knows exactly where every molecule of space is and what it is for. It is visible in the stillness, in the explosive moments, in the transitions, in the face and the eyes. Hooligan did not just give us a great music video. It gave us a timestamp, a specific, dateable moment where we can say, this is who ParkJimin is in 2026. And the answer that timestamp records is one that should make every single person watching feel genuinely fortunate to be alive in this era of music. So when people say nobody moves like Jimin, understand what they are really saying. They are not speaking in hyperbole. They are making an observation about a specific, identifiable, demonstrable quality that exists in one person's work and nowhere else in quite the same combination. The emotional intelligence combined with the physical intelligence, the precision that never loses warmth, the control that never loses freedom, the group member who is always most purely himself. That is what Hooligan gave us. That is what ParkJimin has been building toward for his entire career. And if this video is any indication, and it absolutely is, we have not seen the last of what he is capable of. Make sure you hit that like button if this video gave you something to think about, and subscribe if you want to keep going deeper into the era, because we have so much more content coming your way. Drop in the comments, what was your single most memorable Jimin moment from the Hooligan MV? I want to know what hit you hardest, and I'll see you in the next one.